What the Sigma? 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 What the Sigma?
Hey guys, it's Bedlam. So the new SpongeBob event has just dropped and we are grinding for morsels of that crusty cash right now. Every brawler has some new power-ups to play with. There's a bunch of new game modes. New brawler Mo is out now officially and is available to play in ranked, new rank season 2. There's a lot to cover, but I think for this video we're just going to talk about the new power-ups and the best brawlers for each one. Just going to give you guys my thoughts on what's really good and what is just okay. So you guys kind of have an idea on what to look for, I guess, when you pick stuff up and try stuff out. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. So starting with the power-ups, I think I'm going to go through these starting from what I think are the strongest to the weakest. And of course that means we are going to be starting with the meatball. I mean, let's face it, this thing is actually broken, okay? It's one of the best parts of Piper's kit, but put on like an interesting selection of high DPS characters in the game. I mean, this is, and you get it for several seconds too, on multiple shots. Like, Piper could never. Yeah, the homing is broken on this. I actually think what makes the homing so strong though is the fact that it extends the range of your shots by like a couple tiles. This is super underrated. Piper's gadget has this effect too, and it's a big part of why it's so strong. But obviously the homing itself is fucking phenomenal too. Like, once you hit one shot, your next few shots basically get a console aim assist, so like you're playing Call of Duty. It's insane. On more open maps, the brawlers with the longest range, I think, that have access to the meatball are gonna be just obviously S tier. We're going to talk about which ones those are, and then on more medium range maps, I think almost every brawler with the meatball except 2 are going to at minimum move like 1 or 2 tiers up, maybe even automatically just be S tier. But we are going to talk about the 2 brawler exceptions as well. So first of all, I think the best brawlers with the meatball are going to be Colt, 8-bit, RT, and maybe Clancy. Colt is just insane. First of all you need to do is really hit one shot, and then you activate your meatball, and then you can just spam out shots with the help of your reload gadget. Plus his naturally really high reload speed with the help of his epic gear. Colt is just so broken. I think if you guys have played the new jellyfish mode or the heist mode where the modifiers are active, it is ridiculous. 8-bit is also ridiculous for a very similar reason. His DPS is actually I think even higher than Colt's though. I haven't seen a lot of people try out the 8-bit, but trust me, if you have the damage boost turret, oh my god, standing in that and just like your range is actually longer than Colt's too, so if you just stand in that and just shoot, like I was killing people that weren't even on my screen. That shit is broken. And then you just beam people down at max range and you shoot out more projectiles with per ammo with 8-bit too. This thing is crazy. RT is also insane. His shots are normally, like, this is the thing, RT is normally balanced through the fact that his shots are actually kind of hard to hit. Like, yeah, it's a really fast projectile, but it's really thin. So even though you have a long range, it's like they're kind of like skill-based brawler, you know, like, oh, you have potential to do a lot of damage. You actually do more damage than Mandy per ammo on a marked target, but this shot is like harder to hit, so it's harder to play. And so he's not like broken right now. But with this new meatball, his shots are actually so easy to hit. He is a fucking menace, okay? And you can't actually die. You cannot dive RT because he has that new gadget, the inline gadget, where he can just instantly separate and then one-shot whoever 2 dives on him. Not to mention the fact that he has also almost 8,000 HP without shield gear. RT is actually crazy right now, and with this meatball was all that he needed to unleash his true potential as, I think, the best sniper in the game right now. And then we also have Clancy, who I think is actually like borderline crazy. Clancy at level 2 is going to start dealing 3,200 damage per ammo. Normally his range is kind of like a medium range, and the 2 pebbles aren't that consistent to hit at max range, but with the meatball, his range is extended, and both pebbles have a really good chance of hitting now. So he basically kind of becomes a goddamn sniper too with this meatball. But he's actually even better than a sniper because the side projectiles also home on enemies, so if people are kind of spread out, you're actually going to hit multiple people at the same time with the homing projectiles. Like, it's like a Piper shot that shoots 2 mini Piper fragments to the side. It's crazy. Even if you're not facing tanks, with the help of your upgrade token gadget and star power, if you can get just like one tap on someone, like you just touch someone once, you can then press your gadget and then just use the meatballs being activated to try and home your attacks onto people, and you're gonna get your level 2 with like a few hits. It's actually like really, really good. And then once you're level 2, then you're in a good spot because your super has a long range too now, so you can start to try and grind your levels. But if you are facing a tank, then you're just gonna totally level up like and just shred the rest of the game. I think the next two brawlers that are really strong are gonna be Pearl and Lola. They kind of have a very similar type of attack where it like spreads out and they shoot a bunch of little projectiles in one ammo. Pearl is really strong because with the help of the meatball, it actually kind of synergizes with her heat bar a little, because while you wait for your heat bar to cook back up, your meatball is going to charge back up in the meantime as well. And so then at max heat, you're going to have your meatball ready, and then you can just beam people down at max range. Plus with your on fire gadget or whatever, like that shit is just going to melt people. Lola is really similar to Pearl and pretty strong too. The only thing is that her ego shots don't home in, unfortunately, so like a big part of her damage isn't really accessible to her, but I've been finding a lot of success with that bonus 30% damage star power and just like, you know, melting people too. I mean, Colt, Pearl, and Lola 8-bit, they all kind of do a very similar thing, right? And like if you're in their range with auto aim and the meatball active, like there is no escape. Terra and Shelly are also two very similar brawlers here in this category, who are also, I think, about on par with Pearl and Lola, if maybe like a little worse. Terra becomes, these brawlers become like a sniper basically, capable of dealing like max damage at max range, because like the cards or the shotgun pellets just kind of home in and curve into the brawler that you're targeting. And Terra specifically, combined with her hypercharge and piercing attacks, she ends up kind of becoming like a pretty decent marksman. Plus with her pets, she can like tank shots for her too. She's a better marksman than Janet at least, right, at this point. And same thing with Shelly, but she actually gets an added benefit of using her Clay Pigeons gadget to get an even longer range than Terra does. There is a weird interaction though with the Shelly's Clay Pigeons gadget, where normally the attack projectile with Clay Pigeons is really fast on Shelly, but for whatever reason with the homing meatball on, it just kind of slows down. That might actually be for the best, because I think if the projectile is faster, it might make it harder to home in on enemies, but because it's a little slower, it like has a better chance of hitting people. But I think there are some cases where an enemy that you would otherwise be able to hit with a regular Clay Pigeons, you can't hit just because they're too far away. By the time the projectile travels to them, they're out of the range, so it doesn't work. Now, Rico, on the other hand, I actually thought initially bounce Rico wasn't that good, like the wall bounce star power. It's just because like it's already bouncing, it doesn't really have a chance to home in on enemies when it's bouncing against walls like that. I was ready to just write it off as like a worse version of Colt, but then with the speed star power, I actually think Rico is going to be really strong. The only thing is that comparing Rico to Colt, Rico's damage per ammo isn't as high, and also his unload speed is a lot slower. And he doesn't have a reload gadget either like Colt does to kind of help him spam shots out. So I think overall, like Rico is going to have a lower damage potential than Colt with the meatball, but because he has that extra movement speed from this Robo Retreat gadget, I think he'll actually be a pretty good brawler regardless, and he might even have like potential in helping him dodge other meatball brawlers with the higher movement speed, although let's be honest, I don't even really know if you can dodge the meatball if the other person is like aiming at least a moderate amount. Nita, honorable mention, just she kind of becomes a sniper. I don't know, I was hitting shots with Nita that I should not have been hitting. That Nita thing was traveling a lot farther than I expected. It's actually crazy. You guys should try it out if you have this meatball. Carl also becomes, I think, a lot better with the meatball. You wouldn't think it's like that good, but actually the pickaxe, it kind of homes in on people, helping you hit those max range, like 2 ticks of damage a lot easier. I think it's pretty good. I think it synergizes pretty decent with his like Hot Rocks gadget. I don't know about the Flying Hook one, if it's, I don't know, I actually haven't tested it, so what am I don't know. Surge, I think, doesn't benefit that much from the meatball. I think he does get a lot of benefits at max range for sure, but up close, aiming on Surge was never really like an issue to begin with, right? Like auto aim was already so broken on Surge up close, like at levels 1 and 2. He really only gets the benefit from the meatball at level 3 and above, but it's also like you kind of usually play him on more mid-range maps, so you never really get to use the full length of his max range. And also I think in this current meta with all the other meatball brawlers and the other brawlers too that we haven't mentioned yet, I think he's going to be kind of risky to play. He might just get shredded before he even gets to level 2, and you're going to have a lot of bad randoms, I think, who are like, oh, I want to go Surge on the new meatball modifier, and then just go like 0-6, and it's going to be embarrassing. I think depending on whether or not you can get your level 2 at all in the game, I think that's going to basically make or break whether or not he'll be really good or just really shit. So kind of makes him more risky, but higher reward potentially than before. With Chester, I think Chester is crazy, but he's also kind of inconsistent, which I guess is fitting with his RNG nature as a brawler. Like sometimes you'll get a homing shot with a 1 bell, which is just whatever, it's only 1 bell. But sometimes you'll get a homing shot with a 4 bell attack, which is similar to Shelly and Tara, and that's like insane. It's just like 4 bells just like just blowing their pussy up. It's crazy. Spike does benefit somewhat from the meatball too. his shots do more damage if you hit them directly onto a target, so the homing does kind of help out with those mid-range engagements, but I think for like at max range, it's basically, it's not really that much different from just spamming curveball anyways. Colette, I think, is just okay. The effect of the meatball on her is more subtle, like, you're never gonna shred someone down by just spamming her main attack on a target, right? You have to use your super to combo with it. I think it's gonna be a little more helpful to just be consistent in like farming your supers and hitting people more consistently, but I don't think it's gonna be like that good overall. But the only two brawlers that I would consider the meatballs actually like bad on, or just not useful at all, I think is gonna be Eve and Mo. Now Eve, I think, is bugged because only the baby pebble homes in. The big egg and like the medium egg actually just don't move at all. It's basically like she doesn't even have the meatball buff, because who the fuck cares if the smallest pebble homes in on the target, right? Like that one does the least amount of damage. This might just be some kind of coding issue. If it does get fixed though, I think she'll be on par with some of the greats though, because she has a really long range, and so if her big pebble starts homing in on people and becomes borderline undodgeable, I think she's going to be really good on those long range maps, but for now she's just whatever. And then Mo, first of all, the homing actually fucks with his splitting, causing his shot to do less damage. Like, for some reason, his shots don't split while the projectile is traveling along as the meatball. And with Mo, his shots actually do more damage if you kind of miss your attack and kind of shoot to the side of people, letting it split and bounce multiple times, hitting the enemy multiple times. And I think the fact that it doesn't split while homing basically fucks him over a lot. If this does get fixed, I think this could be good for Mo. But even if it like did split while traveling, I don't know, I think it just doesn't seem to matter that much on a character like Mo. He's more of an assassin in my opinion, with the way he uses his drill and stuff. Like, come on, Mo is basically just an assassin, a glorified assassin with a spike mechanic on his basic attack. I think if he was given like the spatula instead, he would be like crazy broken. It's honestly fine that he's kind of sucks with the meatball. I don't think anybody's really gonna miss him, but yeah, just so you know, I think Mo is just not that good with the meatball. His attack just doesn't really work properly. Alright, so next up we have the spatula, which I think is the next best one after the meatball. One thing that is kind of annoying though is a lot of these power-ups don't have like a very visible indicator that tells you when you have it ready. Is that just me? I feel like it's hard to really know when I have it ready, because I don't want to stare at my brawler the whole game. It's just, I don't know, it's hard for me to really notice that I have it. For the meatball, it's not actually as big of a deal because you have it for multiple shots. And so even if you don't notice it the first time, you know, your next two shots, you have like an opportunity still to spam it out and get that homing effect. But for things like the spatula and like the clarinet, it just, like, you only have it for basically like one use, and it's not really, you can't really know that you have it, so you can't, it's harder to like play around it in my opinion. I think they should make you have some kind of glowing reticle or effect on your screen when your power-up is ready. Maybe it could be kind of similar to the one they use for when you hold the brawl ball. Maybe it could be like your aiming attack itself kind of changes. I don't know, but it's not like they're really holding back on making these fancy visual effects, right? Like, I mean, just look at the brawl pass animation. To me, I think it's just kind of hard to know when you have these power-ups available, but it's more impactful for the clarinet and less on the spatula, because the spatula I think is actually still very strong. The nice thing about it is it doesn't get consumed if your attack misses, so even though it only gets used once, it'll only get used if your attack is able to execute the enemy. In terms of the best brawlers, I think Crow just feels insane on the spatula. He has a really long range for an assassin, which lets him take advantage of the power-up even better. Plus his poison tick will execute enemies if their HP ticks below the threshold for assassination. So his biggest issue, I think, Crow's biggest issue is lacking burst damage, which this spatula basically grants him a ton of. And so now his jump and like facing him up close can actually be like a real threat if he has the spatula up. Crow is, I think, crazy. Leon is also really good with his long range. It's weird to like face a Leon and then be at like slightly at 50% HP and then you just get tickled by him from across the map and suddenly you get one shot. Super weird, but it's happened to me multiple times now. I think Stu will be very good. If you're like a Stu main, you're definitely going to appreciate the added burst damage against tanks. He's just going to be good, I think, for most people. Mortis feels really good, especially on the new jellyfish mode, but his super can actually be used to get like nice executes too, and he generally just pops off in general with his hypercharge. So yeah, this added like execute I think just makes him crazy right now. Fang also is going to be really, really strong. His super bounces off the spatula enemies, which is really nice, and those shoe kills right from across the map go crazy. Lily I think is also going to be really great. She's already pretty strong, and the super is like a damage tick, which is really important for actually executing brawlers. So her super can basically use to one-shot people. Even if they're not at like the HP threshold when you hit them with the super, by the time you shoot, you burst out 2 attacks, which is almost instant on Lily. They're most likely gonna get executed. So Lily, I think, is gonna be really strong. Melody feels great, actually. I played her a little bit in Heist. The issue with Melody is she kind of lacks burst damage for an assassin, but this gives her some crazy one-shots, especially against the tanks in Heist. I think she's actually going to be like really good with this. Buzz also feels really good. Getting like max range kills at the very edge of the tip of his attack range feels actually really good, because normally on Buzz, when someone's like the very tip, like you're barely licking their butt cheeks as they run away from you, you're doing no damage. They're just gonna like tap you and kill you or whatever. But now if you have the spatula, you can actually just like finish people off or just right at the tippy tip of your range, which is super nice. He's still more of a niche pick, but I think he's gonna be a lot better on Heist at least. Edgar is also okay. Kind of in a similar boat with Buzz, I think. His insta kills do feel nice with his star power, where that like does damage when he lands. But I don't know, I mean, Edgar is Edgar. Like, he just kind of does one thing, and that's counter throwers, and maybe also do pretty okay in Heist. Monkey is also, I think, just okay. His attacks are kind of not that compatible with the spatula in general, but his gadget does get nice finishers. So the one where you scream and shoot out those 3 projectiles, I think that has some potential on Monkey. He'll still, you know, he's similar with Edgar though. He just kind of does one job, and that's counter snipers and throwers. I mean, he's okay. Sam, I think he kind of benefits from the spatula, but he's just not the best in the meta right now to begin with. I don't really know. I think it's really sad that Sam is classified as an assassin, because he really is a tank. I mean, he should have gotten the burger, in my opinion. I think this is just like it's okay, but I don't know. It's whatever. It might help him counter those pesky tanks. Cord is gonna be, I think, an even better tank counter now with the spatula, because he already was used to counter tanks. But I don't know about his usage in general, especially playing against all the like meatball brawlers running around, and like the now throwers have this pineapple that lands. Like, I think he's gonna be good. I just think he's just gonna be good. Alright, and now we have, I think, what I think is the next strongest one. Low-key, maybe I'm overrating this, but I think the soda is actually fucking crazy, guys. I think the soda is really, really strong. Level 1, you don't get power cubes yet, so I think it actually has potential to be even stronger than it is now. Even at level 1, I've found that it's really nice on a lot of different supports. I actually played a heist game on Barry where I was stacking with Barry on, like, there was another support too. I think they were playing Colonel Ruffs, and it was just me as a Barry, Colonel Ruffs, and we're just like healing each other, like spam healing, like almost unkillable team comp, just stacked together. I think if you have multiple range supports with the soda, plus a Barry or just some healer, or maybe even without it, just having multiple range supports, I think this is going to be like a crazy combo, guys. The only downside with the soda that I can see is that I think he might be visible in bushes, but besides that, the healing kind of has actually a nice matchup into the spatula, because being able to heal yourself off from the one-shot threshold, I think makes you a lot tankier than other brawlers normally would be. So the first, I think the most broken brawler with this soda right now, at level 1 at least, is Barry. He's fucking crazy. He actually gets the effect of his reload star power, even if he's not standing on his goopy cream. I don't know why that is. That might actually be like a coding thing where the star power basically just gives himself a reload speed buff from any source of self-healing. And so the soda kind of counts as a source of self-healing, so he actually gets the reload speed increase the whole time. Whatever the case is, his reload speed is really fast right now if you have that star power on. Also, the healing circle. He has that, supercharging trait from the healing, the self-healing and stuff, and healing his teammates, so that he spams his supers out like before the nerf. He's really nice. Once you get level 2 or 3 with the soda, you start to charge your super 2 with any healer, but for now, Barry feels really great with this. You can pull off, like I said earlier, some nasty double or even triple support like Barry comes. It's actually really fun. You guys should give it a try. Max is, and I say she's maybe broken, I don't know. The self-healing is real, like, it just, on an aggressive brawler like Max, like, I was doing some crazy touching on some enemy throwers on Max. I don't know if that's gonna be, into every matchup, into some meatball brawlers, maybe she's just gonna get shredded, but I think Max is really, really strong too. Plus, the nice thing about her soda range is that, like, it kind of synergizes with her max speed, so if a brawlers are already grouping up on her, she can just max speed them right away. I think she's gonna be really good. Poco is interesting. Into some comps, he gets kind of farmed, like, especially if they have triple tank counter, or like triple the meatball, it's you might get shredded. Into some comps, or like with a decent amount of walls, I think he's actually like almost unkillable. He has his constant healing, plus with 4 gadgets and super cycling, I think he's gonna be crazy. Plus he has his hypercharge too, which I don't even have, and I was like, I was kind of rolling for at least a couple games, and then yeah. Gus is already, I think, very OP right now. With the constant healing, I think it just makes him crazy, even crazier. Gus has almost like 8k HP, and now he has the damage buffs too. Like he does more damage than Mandy with the shield on. I don't know what, like the constant healing too. I think he's gonna be really great on those long range maps. Pam is very tanky now with the healing too. A lot of you young whippersnappers might not know this, but back in the day, Pam with her scrap sucker gadget was notorious for being a really good tank counter, and now she is even better at keeping herself alive. I think she's gonna be very, very solid into some maps and some comps. I think Byron is also pretty strong. He's like a long-range support brawler, going to be really good on those passive modes. Ruff's, similar thing. I actually think he's going to be... I think the healing is actually going to kind of synergize well with his max health increasing star power. Maybe on some passive maps we might start to see some Ruffs, especially paired with other supports. I don't know, guys. I think Ruffs might be pretty solid. Gray has a really great synergy, I think, with this soda, which is with his fake injury star power. Now, if you guys don't know, the fake injury star power basically reduces the damage of the first hit you take when you're on full HP. If you have the shield gear, though, the game basically counts you as always being on full HP until your shield is broken, which means that if you have the fake injury star power and the shield gear on, you're going to be able to tank like a 1800 damage shot or whatever on the first hit when you're at full HP. Now, the most annoying part of that star power is the fact that you're always trying to just play passively, heal back up to recharge your shields to try to make use of that fake injury star power again. But now that you have this soda that's healing you for you, you can kind of just have fake injury active a lot of the time, like way more often than you did before. I think Gray is going to be really, really good now, especially to counter the throwers too. I think he's going to low-key be like a better assassin than he was before, even though he has this support power up. Doug is surprisingly good, actually. With his self-service, he can sustain really well, even though his skin bug did get nerfed and reverted, unfortunately. But I actually think he might be underrated. Maybe. Who knows? But he's also Doug, so I think against the Meatball Brawler, he's not going to be able to do anything. Kit Invis is unplayable. I think with the soda visual effect, like they can just see you even if you're invis, so it doesn't really matter. The healing gadget though, with it, I think he actually makes him a very good thrower support, and I think it's actually going to combo really well with the burger brawlers. I think he's going to be a really good support slash thrower maybe. And this is the thing about the soda too, like I think it's just really strong right now. All the brawlers kind of benefit from the soda. I can't think of a single brawler that's like, oh yeah, this brawler's just bad. Like I think the soda is just really, really good, because even if you are useless in every aspect and nothing but a worthless sausage, at least people can use you to fill themselves back up with HP, which is why I put it in the 3rd spot, even above the pineapple and the burger. Speaking of, we're going to talk about the pineapple next. Now, unfortunately, pineapple is the only power-up that I didn't fucking get. This really makes me sad. I wish I didn't get the bubbles instead, but whatever, I got the pineapple. Now, I see people playing Tick a lot with the pineapple. I guess it's crazy. I wouldn't really know, but facing against it is definitely annoying, I think. My more vivid memory is getting cooked by a Grom who landed some nutty shots on me with the pineapple and just completely shredded my shit. So that's my 2 cents on it. I think all the throwers probably are going to be pretty comparable though, kind of similar with the soda. Like they're all going to get a really nice boost from the pineapple, like just being able to deal maybe even a little bit more burst damage, if not just more consistent damage overall. Might make them better in heist, might make them lock down a map better. Yeah, I don't know. I think pineapple is just going to be really, really good for most brawlers kind of equally. But take that with a grain of salt, because obviously I haven't gotten to use it yet. Burger is... I actually think it feels pretty good. I think it's definitely underrated. It's a 70% damage reduction, I think, which feels really, really nice. The only issue, of course, is that the meatball and the spatula just completely shred tanks. So if you combo the burger with supports like the soda, I actually think that's low-key going to be extremely broken. But I think just on their own, the burger is it's just good. It's actually really good, but it kind of struggles against the meatball and the spatula, but it is really good. On characters that already have a damage reduction shield, the burger I think is just going to make them feel even more unkillable than before. Like Bull, Rosa, Daryl, BB, Draco, all these brawlers kind of have damage reduction built into their kit. I think they're going to be really good with the burger. Also Frank, of course, and Meg are already pretty strong right now anyways. I think they're going to be really good with the burger too. I think the burger is just really good overall though. And then we come down to the Clarinet. When I first saw this, I thought it would be extremely broken. In fact, I think I remember saying like, oh my god, this is going to be the best one. And then it was not. in all honesty, he's actually pretty mediocre compared to the others. I think it's for a bunch of reasons actually. Now, unlike the meatball effect, the clarinet only empowers your next attack, and so you only get one shot to like break walls or pierce walls, whereas with the meatball you can like spam shots out and just get a bunch of homing effects, which I think makes the meatball way stronger and the clarinet just way weaker in comparison. Also, unlike the spatula, the clarinet, it'll only empower your next attack. It doesn't matter whether or not you actually break any walls with it or not. Unlike with this, the spatula, it'll only take effect if you actually are going to execute someone below 40% HP. I think these two things kind of just make the clarinet way weaker in comparison to the other ones. Also, for some reason, the clarinet doesn't work on Piper or Brock gadgets that like change their next attack to do different things. But it does work on Mandy slows and all the other marksmen that alter their next attack with their gadgets. I don't really know why this is the case, but it does suck for Brock and Piper specifically. Another thing that kind of sucks with the clarinet too is you can't see your aiming reticle through the wall when it's active. And this is normal for a lot of for attacks that kind of go through walls with a gadget, but it already annoys me with those two. And also, it does make it harder to tell when you have it. And the thing is, at least with those gadgets that have that effect of letting you shoot through walls, at least you're intentionally pressing the gadget button, so you know your next attack is going to pierce, and so you can kind of play around that. But with the clarinet, you actually aren't really sure when your clarinet is going to pop up or when your next attack is going to pierce through walls, which kind of sucks. Like, you're just waiting, sitting around and staring at your brother like, okay, is it ready yet? Is it ready yet? And then maybe you're already dead by then. This is why I said earlier, I really think a glowing reticle would help a lot for the clarinet in particular, or at least having some kind of visual screen effects, like when you hold the brawl ball, that kind of tells you like, oh, your next effect is charged, because you only really get one shot, which I think is a lot more punishing than the other power-ups too, right? Compared to like a low cooldown pineapple that always lands after like a second, or the always active soda, the 70% damage reduction burger, the clarinet just kind of feels underwhelming in comparison. There are some opportunities where you do see a low HP enemy through a wall, but then they're going to heal up by the time your clarinet even charges, and that also really sucks. Although occasionally you can make some really cool plays which do feel awesome. And I will say that the clarinet does do one thing really great, which is opening up the map a lot. Like, I pulled Piper up into Heist, and I did lose that game, but I went 5-1 or whatever. Like, I think I did pretty damn good. I think the clarinet has potential, especially if people start getting it to level 3, because then you start getting it on a lower cooldown and you get a damage boost. This thing might actually be a sleeper, guys. Guys, I was right the whole time, okay? Clarinet is gonna be broken, trust me, guys. I'm not coping, I swear. It might actually be a lot better than people think once people start getting it upgraded, but at level 1, yeah, it's pretty mid. And then last and definitely the least and most useless one, we have the bubbles. The bubbles fucking suck. I mean, half the time I just walk into them and eat the 300 damage. I have yet to be intimidated by a single bubble user, yet again cementing why controllers aren't a useful category of brawler, but whatever. I think things maybe could change with the level 3 bubbles, because I don't know, maybe, but right now I'm just kind of walking into the bubbles and not really feeling anything. They're bubbles, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Overall, I think the power-ups are actually surprisingly balanced, or at least there's no one or two brawlers that completely dominate the meta like with mutations, whereas every game was just Rico and Ruffs and you had to play at least one on your team or else you were going to lose, right? You see at least some kind of variety of brawlers, even though it's all probably going to be the meatball and spatula as the meta progresses, but whatever. This time, every brawler also has access to a unique power-up at least, whereas last time only a select few had a mutation, so this is also really nice too, although arguably the controller brawlers didn't get anything because the bubble sucks. But who knows, maybe level 3 is going to pop off and I'll eat my words. But besides the bubble, like, the balance is actually pretty decent. They're all pretty strong and they all kind of like do their own thing. And I wouldn't say that, the meatball is obviously the strongest, but I wouldn't say it's like way stronger than everything else. Everything is pretty moderately strong, except the bubble. That being said, maybe it's my bias from like my recent Brawler Archetypes video, but playing this SpongeBob event I can't help but think like how cool it would be if you could just use any of the power-ups that you have on any brawler, or at least kind of allow a brawler to choose between multiple power-ups even if they don't have access to all of them, right? It could be somewhat reflective of the brawler's multiple playstyles, like kind of how controllers like Gale, Griff, or Ems kind of play like DPS or tank counters, right? If they got access to the meatball, that would be really cool. Or maybe Sam or Mortis with the burger, right? Because they are kind of played like tanks sometimes. Buster with the support healing, right? If you want to get really crazy, imagine Gene with the meatball, where all of his fragments kind of home in on a target. That would be pretty cool. Or maybe even Gene with the spatula, that would be totally busted. Or maybe Mortis with the clarinet, allowing him to dash through walls, right? Imagine if you could pick which power-up you wanted to choose on your brawler. And like regardless of the restrictions they put on this, or maybe none at all, if we could choose our own loadout or build with the power-ups, I feel like that would actually add a really cool layer of depth to the game. But you know, what we have now I guess is still pretty cool, although some things like the bubbles and the clarinet obviously feel a little underpowered compared to the rest right now. And yeah, that's going to be it for me for this video. Initially, I was actually going to talk about the 2 new game modes as well, but this video is already half an hour long, and I think most of you are probably going to watch about 10 minutes and peace out, so I don't know. If you have fallen asleep and just woke up to the sound of the ending, thanks for watching the whole way through. I appreciate the bonus on my viewer retention graphs. If you made it this far into this video, I love your t-shirt by the way. If you're not wearing one, put one on and replay this part. Let me know in the comments if you want me to talk about the 2 new game modes in a separate video. Take care guys. I love you. Goodbye. Mwah.